Do I want to do something very, serious like medical audits to satisfy and please my mom? Or go into a little bit more unconventional field, which was sales and marketing?
So, welcome, dear listeners, to the Startup Sales Talks podcast number 18. And today we have a special guest, and I'm telling special for a reason. Amit Goldman is the first guest from healthcare industry, and I need to admit I have a soft spot actually for this field since I myself studied pharmacy for years and ultimately acquired a master's of pharmacy degree. And Amit is a friend from healthcare field, and we are very excited today to deep dive into this field and innovations and startups. And Amit is in this area for years. So Amit, thanks very much for finding the time in your schedule. And how are you? How are you doing?
Well, technically it's a day off, so it was pretty easy to, find some time in my busy schedule. But it's always a pleasure to see you. I'm alive, thanks God, and thanks to my doctors. Nothing serious, though. I'm really excited to be here myself, Dom. Healthcare is a big passion of, I think, both of ours. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. So thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So let's start from your career and your life journey and how you appeared in the healthcare and specifically in healthcare innovations and partnerships. So, what was the story behind how you started in this field?
Sure. So I would say that my journey probably wasn't really conventional. It was more of an unconventional story. I initially started in med school. I got a degree in public health, which gave me kind of a first-hand understanding of the patient care and, to be more precise, in preventative and diagnostic measures that are used. And I got into the field because an almost entire line of from my mother's side were in healthcare. So I was kind of groomed into the field since the very early days. Now, after actually while I was still a student, I landed up an internship in the chain of the biggest private healthcare clinic chain. And I remember back in the days, I had this kind of a decision to make. Do I want to do something very, serious like medical audits to satisfy and please my mom, or go into a little bit more unconventional field, which was sales and marketing? And my boss at the time, I see you have to come to my department of sales and marketing. And I really liked her. She had similar background to mine. And I think one of the best advices that I received early on in my career, look at the person and think if you want to be like that person. And it kind of rang a bell. And I was like, well, she's cool. She does well. I would like to explore more of that path. So that kind of redirected my entire career. So I landed different jobs in the healthcare sales, working for the biggest medical centers, and it was really fun. And also really impactful seeing patients that, because you can see the patients, getting treated, getting the care that they need. And it's really rewarding as a person. So you have a meaning in your everyday day-to-day work that you are actually helping someone. And how did I get into tech? I guess not every medical student that's going to the med school, pharma, whatever they're studying, they don't dream right from the bat that, oh, I'm gonna go into tech, because usually you're kind of groomed, and the entire field is pretty, focused on different values. And this wasn't my initial idea that, oh, I'm gonna go into tech. It's interesting, it's fun, but it wasn't my first idea. But I got a call from an acquaintance of mine, a very successful serial entrepreneur, and his partner that are based out of the US, who invited me to join their startup at the time. And I was on the founding team. And what we did, we built an electronic healthcare record system. We, of course, started from a completely different product. We wanted, because it was really the early days of COVID, and we noticed that telemedicine could be a very impactful tool at the time that physicians could actually use day to day in their, in their practices, because, you couldn't just go and see your doctor. You were literally locked up with a mask on. And nobody knew what's going to happen except for my professor in epidemiology. He written an entire email with what's going to happen, and it turned out to be true. Um, but yeah, so I joined the team. It was a kind of that moment when I redirected my career more into the health tech, oriented more into the health tech, and I was selling telemedicine solution very early on in my first job, but it was a little bit too early. So it was interesting to go back and see the actual traction and actually see, when they say, oh, you have to wait for the right time. If if it's the right time for the product, then it can take off, or then you'll see traction. It was really interesting to be later on selling and, selling and demoing the product to physicians, and when they actually needed that product to implement in their practices. So that was really interesting, and step by step working for the startup led me to another startup, Lapsy Health, that I'm with right now, and also led me to the venture capital fund that's based out of Silicon Valley that invests in digital diagnostic tools. So that's kind of on my flow and how I
Yep.
ended up where I am.
Okay, and I see you touched a lot of upon like different areas of medical field, but let's focus today more on innovation, right? Over your career, what kind of most impactful things you saw that impacts patient experience or medical practices, and maybe what kind of trends you see in those innovations? Like, where is the most promising fields at the moment where the startups are working on?
Okay. So let's start to dissect the question. What did I touch and what did I see and how things change? Because I worked in the medical setting. I worked for actual medical clinics in here. So, I had that opportunity to touch upon, um, all of the infrastructure that was implemented in the clinics. I think all of us, even as somebody who is a provider or even a salesperson or a patient, you can see how things have changed in the last, I'd say, several years, but even more. And things that have never been innovated, they're getting innovated. I guess yesterday I went to see a dermatologist to check up my moles, and I do that every year to just make sure that I'm on the good track and, you know, um, everything's okay with my body, because I did work a lot of preventative care. So this is a big interest of my own. And one of the things that we did during that visit, she took her device to not only look into my moles, because this is the usual practice, right? You take this device and you just look at it, right? But when the same doctor will look at the mole a year later or even 2 years later, probably you will not spot any differences, right? But what we did this time, we took pictures of my moles, so that when I'll come a year after to check up on my moles, to check if there has been any tiny little micro changes made in my body, and how could that impact my later on health. To be more precise, could it be a melanoma? Could something, happen that we wouldn't want for me to happen? So these tiny little things are being implemented in our day-to-day um, patient care, right? But so I would, coming a step back, I think there are different fields, right? There's one field then in the direct patient care and like how we administrate the work of the physicians, which probably during COVID has been massively accelerated. E-prescriptions, telemedicine visits, chatbots, even ChatGPT. If you put in your medical records, and this is not the medical advice, but if you put in your medical records and if you position things in one or another way, or if you just want to know if you're that and you're waiting to see your doctor on Wednesday and it's Monday, you have 3 days of like going crazy. But if you put in, you know, your lab results, they could technically, ChatGPT, not technically and practically, can analyze the documents and give you some insights on it. Maybe everything's okay. Not necessarily, again, you have to go and see your doctor, but at least you can have a grasp of what's happening with your body, because sometimes when a doctor has only 10 or 12 minutes for a patient to discuss their uh, um, health and the condition, you don't have that much of a time to ask all of the questions that maybe potentially you wanted to, and see the progression. So again, so the administration of the patient care. Number two is the direct patient care. Number three is all of the things that are happening behind, right? So all of the diagnostics, lab work, liquid biopsies, and all of these magical things that are happening right now and that are being innovated. Now, there's another layer. There's a preventative care, right? There's a preventative care and wellness, and longevity, I think, could fall really underneath that as well. So all of these things, they have their own innovations. I think that I touched a lot on the direct patient care and the diagnostics. We built an electronic healthcare record system, which was for small medium enterprises for the physicians that are based in the U.S. So we touched a little bit upon the administrative part. But all of these things are being innovated. For me, what is most exciting is personalized care, and the fact that I will not be treated, even for my example with dermatologist, I will not be treated the same as just another female in her whatever 50s, 60s, 70s, or just another average. That I will be treated as a patient, that I will be that my medical records, that the picture of my mole will be recorded and analyzed next year, and it will be compared to the mole that I had today. And I think this is something that we couldn't and we were not able to do before. And then another thing is the data that comes in, right? So we can, analyze the data, use the devices, different devices for our own good. I mean, nobody would recommend to go crazy on this, but a doctor will not be, no one will be as good in your healthcare management unless you're super rich to hire someone and just work on you. Um, you are the one who has to take care of your health. You are the one who has to know when to check upon your things. And if you have the tools that are right for you, that will analyze your own body, like CGMs, if you have some problems with, glucose, um, other trackers that could be potentially used for your own health conditions to manage, could make a massive significant impact for you to live longer and happier and healthier lives, and maybe even save somebody who lives with you. As they say, men usually, they don't care as much of a care of their health as their wives do. So sometimes you even have to take care of somebody who's right next to you. And all of these trackers, like Unicorn from Lithuania, Flow Health, that I'm a paid user of. So you can track your cycle. You can share all of that data with your spouse, with your partner. I'm having a mood swing today just because maybe my hormones are out of whack. Or even for the men, to track their own, maybe order kits to their home and track their own hormonal imbalances, like the testosterone changes and other hormones, and how could that affect your own mood, or maybe you're going through the you know through some hormonal changes, if you're in the later years of your career. So a lot of fun things that are happening in the personalized care, and that enables us to become, and that enables and gives us power to understand better our own bodies, and also to physicians, because when you have just 12, 15 minutes, you cannot do it all.
And those actually healthcare startups are in very interesting position because you mentioned moles, right? So imagine a clinic that specialize in researching moles, and they collect hundreds of thousand pictures on, let's say, on the monthly basis. So they collect a very unique data set, right? That no one else actually has, right? And that data set is extremely valuable. So I heard that there's some cases when now these data sets are being sold to the startups to train the models actually. right? And
Exactly.
that brings very different like understanding how we can actually uh, how much data is worth and how it can be used, with the current technology. And you mentioned, right, selling to physicians. That can be very different than selling to tech guys or selling to like any kind of other person, right? They have their own standards. They have their own procedures, how they make a procurement of one thing or another thing. What do you saw like a biggest mistakes when guys, let's say, come not from this field and they're trying to sell to clinics, to physicians? Like, what are, like top things maybe to avoid or to keep in mind while doing that?
100%. Really great question, and I love it. And physicians and medical institutions are so much different, I'd say, from whatever. You give an example. Who do you sell usually to?
Marketing or sales in tech?
Marketing or sales in tech, so it's so much different. And to explain how different that is, I will just give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I put up a question on my LinkedIn. I don't know if you remember. And I asked my
I do.
followers to guess, I mean, not to guess, but to pick which doctor would you choose for your own treatment, or consider more professional, the one that has a large social media following, or the one that has no social media following. And guess what was the percentage? Maybe I even told you.
Actually, I think we talked during an event about that, and I
Yeah,
remember that people prefer doctor who doesn't have like a big digital presence or like followers, right? Amount of
exactly.
followers.
And the percentage was 78% said that the one that has no social media following would be their preference. And I had 81 professional people from my LinkedIn network respond to that question of mine, and only 22 picked the ones that have large social media following. And I think that is really interesting when you are trying to understand the way physicians and people from the medical field think. It's not about like being super flashy. This might not be the number one thing. How you pick your physician, how you pick your provider, how you pick your clinic, unless you don't know how the medical field works. And I think these differences are even bigger in Europe compared to the US. And I can cover that in a little bit. I think Europeans are even more kind of private, so to say. And it's kind of it's considered bad taste to go out there and promote yourself as a physician, because everybody just knows that you're good. And some of the best doctors that I've spoken to, they didn't have to promote themselves as I'm the top number one physician. Everybody just knows, or the by the publications that they made, because you have to have also good practical skills. So you spend a lot of time in seeing patients. You don't have all of the time to like dance around on like TikTok and like, I don't know, I don't do TikTok, but I guess that would look something like this. You have to focus on something that would build your A, credibility, B, skills in the medical field. And when you speak to the person like that, you have to use a bit of a different selling points, right? You have to think how you will sell to the person who cares about these things. So when you go to a provider and you're selling something to the provider, it's not about like how beautiful this crystal ball is, but it's what is the specificity, what is the sensitivity of the product that you're selling, right? What are you selling? How will you be able to use it? Will you actually be there? If it's like, and I'll give you, if it's a tool for your administrative task, will there be someone to handhold me and spend hours of your time to like actually explain how it works and show how it works? Because think about it, as I said, and I think you experienced the same, Dom, in the healthcare field, also user, not only acquisition, but also you have to introduce the user into how will you be able to use the product and support the user throughout the journey before they become an actual proper users of the product, because it can take a massive amount of time, because according to the data, the physicians, they're not that tech savvy. as other fields of other specialties. So I think explaining very well how the product works, highlighting the important things for the physician like data privacy, because think about it, if you leak something out and the doctor is responsible, if they're treating, I don't know, the president of your country, and somebody will find out that that president has something very specific, like a disease or I don't know, like something, that's it. You can be fined like with massive fines, and like you can dragged into massive lawsuits. So building that credibility is so important. And also, another thing about like selling to them is like, you have to understand the things that you're talking about, because a lot of them, they're like, you don't even know what you're talking about, or you don't even know about the field, so how can you actually sell the product to me or sell the thing to me? So you have to really spend time in understanding the field that you're operating in. And now, but I guess I think it's everywhere the same, but in healthcare the expertise is really valued, and understanding of that field is really valued. Now, to tap on and mention other things is that physicians don't necessarily use the typical channels where you're trying to source your potential leads. So you might have to go out there and go in person or ask for recommendations to introduce you to someone who will introduce you to someone, to think of the educational environments where maybe you can educate, maybe your product is very innovative and you have some really amazing experts that could educate physicians that, oh, this exists, and we would love to tell you more about it. And one of the companies that I work for, we worked with one of the medical institutions we signed a contract with in the US. And from that tiny little lead, we've got a mass of a dozen of users that worked with MBA and like other big stars in the US in the sports field, that gave us even more credibility. So it's really finding the right opportunities, but not necessarily from the typical ways how you do it in other businesses. So the trust is very big, I'd say.
Actually, I see some similarities between how tech, let's say, operates and how they're trying to sell these days, and how pharma companies are trying to sell to doctors. So they're seeking for opinion leaders.
Exactly.
Same happening right now in like tech field. Then you have those called influencers, or the people that are expert in their fields, and brands are basically striking a deals with them that they would promote certain tool. So same goes for basically drugs and maybe any other, like a medical product, that if that doctor who's like professor, he has like massive leverage on the community, he will be or she will be leveraged, and that will influence the other doctors to buy the specific product. But that's actually very difficult, I think, to do, because you need to convince one person, and that one person can have like many different opinions or experiences or incentives and so on. But that's actually the parallel that I see so far.
100%. I love what you said here. It is 100% true. Using, and again, I've never really called them influencers as per se, like in the tech world. And I had a conversation this week with one tech company in based out of UK that are working on their influencer kind of a marketing strategy. And it's and it's so different in the sense of like, who do you address. You're trying to drill down as many leads as possible for the influencer marketing. And for the medical field, you have to pick the right people, so that these right people would have enough of influence on their own networks and bring in the people. But when I say right, I'm saying that sometimes people who are not from the healthcare field, and they're like, oh, we're going to innovate in the healthcare field, we want to bring this product here. They go on TikTok and they see this massive physician who's like dancing out there and shaking his or her, bum and body, and like, has like millions and millions of followers, which is wonderful or potentially maybe patient engagement and maybe bringing something to the patient. But if your end user is physician, this is just not gonna work. And I've seen companies feeling, unfortunately, and understanding that just because somebody has a large media following and it's a physician on one or another platform, that doesn't necessarily mean that that physician will bring you more physicians to even test or use our product. And I've seen it in my own experience, that just because you're influential on social media or other fields, it doesn't mean that you're going to influence other buyers, which would be technically the or users, other physicians. And when you think about even the next layer when you're selling, which is in most of the countries that have, like NHS, or like, the reimbursement pathways are also so important. How will your product be reimbursed? Will I have to pay as a patient for that picture taking of my mole, right? Again, those moles. Or will that be covered by the government because the clinic had to buy the product to, augment their practice in order to provide better care? Will I have to pay? If I had to pay a couple of $100 for it or euros for it, I don't know if I would take that picture of that mole unless I'd have an insurance, and the insurance would. So what is the how will that particular um treatment that you're getting is being reimbursed? Because maybe all you'll have to do at the end of the day is just go to the insurance providers or the national, kind of a system, and just an easy way of getting in if you actually had the right product for people to get healthier and live longer lives. Or are you selling it to private clinics and it's a way more difficult kind of a route, from a sense of human efforts, but from the sense of like, if you're covered by insurance, it's so much easier.
Yeah,
in,
and
in
when you think about that, that there's very close community, right? So medical community, usually doctors talk with doctors or with academia representatives from certain universities, right? So it's quite hard, like, to gather the community or to be a part of it. But you managed to do that, but in a very unconventional way in the Clubhouse when you gathered the community of medical experts in the platform called Clubhouse, which was basically audio messaging platform. Maybe some of the listeners they heard about that one, but at least I did. And how it went, like, that's a very interesting story, like how you came up with that and what kind of impact it had, and what maybe results you or what kind of doors it opened for you personally.
Great question. And I think it made a difference in my life, in my career, I'd say. As stupid as it sounds, a silly app on my iPhone that I was recommended to download. Maybe I'll explain a little bit how it worked, because I think it is also pretty important to understand on what was the quality of people that came in there. And also another important thing that I should mention, again, the time when the product was rolled out. So the time when the product was rolled out was COVID. The app, what did it do? It was basically, you only could get an invite. It started from the Stanford bubble, and you only had several of invites, and basically it was just a network of people who knew someone who knew someone, and that was the only way how you could get in, through recommendations. So the quality of the people was insane. It was COVID. You couldn't go to conferences, you couldn't meet people, you couldn't like talk to people. But what you could do, you could meet them online and just talk to them. And the voices, and when you do even cold calling, can, and I think you're an expert in that, Dom. Cold outreach, the voice is so impactful. Sometimes you just close the email and like forget it or delete that spam email. But when you hear someone talk, maybe the voice, how it sounds, maybe the accent that the person has, the picture that the person has, like something, can like kind of ring a bell. So it was so much more, so much easier to connect with other person that was on the other side potentially of the world. And basically, there was a meta club. I was not the only founder. We were a couple of people who were co-founders. It was the idea was to bring in the people from the healthcare field. It was the biggest medical club on Clubhouse with 120,000 members. And the idea was to bring in these people for conversations about the healthcare. And keep in mind that it was COVID. So everybody wanted to learn about vaccines, which ones are good, which ones are bad, telemedicine. Every month we would bring the president of the American Telemedicine Association, Professor Joseph Clatter from Harvard, to talk with us about for an hour and answer questions about telemedicine and its implementation. So people from Australia, from Lithuania, from United States, from the UK, they would gather all together online to talk about these, really important topics. And sometimes when we would speak about code, the rooms would just blow up because it was like a virtual rooms in the real time where people could like ask questions. So if we would cover like some really hot important topics on the in the medical field and medical technology, that were of course curated conversations with top-notch medical professionals in the best institutions of the world that were leading and are leading from the field of healthcare, like from the American Medical Association and as I said, other institutions. So sometimes the rooms would blow up and 10,000 people would show up to listen and ask questions, which was honestly a very exciting time. So how did that impact, later on career of mine? You suddenly you only had an opportunity to participate in maybe a webinar on telemedicine or a webinar on implementation on digital diagnostic tools online with A, B, C, or D expert in that field, and then suddenly that person comes into your room and wants to talk on your stage, virtual stage. And so you get to know these people, and it really opens doors and helps you understand the field even better. You have that direct later on access. I landed my current job at Lapsy Health through Clubhouse because I've met the current founder of the startup on Clubhouse. We brought in into the startup one of the lead investors that we met through Clubhouse. The entire community kind of everyone was from Clubhouse in one or another way, and we probably have met somehow somewhere. And even now when I go to a conference, or once it even happened for me, I was walking down the street and one lady stopped me and said, "I know you, you're Amit Goldman." And I was like, "Yeah, hi." And the lady was from Berlin just visiting, and she was like, "I know you're from Clubhouse, we met, I'm a clinical psychologist doing this and that." So it's really, really a wonderful community. And as you said yourself, so as you said yourself, patient education, exchanging the information, because it's all in the information. Think about it. It's all in the information. If you don't have the information, you might lose a lot of years and a lot of money and you can spend a lot of money on doing something that might not be relevant to the people. So having these people who maybe already went through that path, right? Having that contact where you can call is a massive, added value. And even from the perspective of a startup, if you don't know how the reimbursement works, or if you don't know how big the clinical trial has to be for one or another product that you want to roll out, if you don't know that know-how, it can take you years and years. You can spend all of your money that you raised for your pre-seed, seed, and then you think that, oh, I need to hire these expensive sales, people in the States to start selling my product because I'm gonna get my reimbursement in a couple of months, but then I'm gonna get my whatever FDA approval in a couple of months, but then it takes way longer than that. It can take you years and years. So you have to really, really know things, understand things, have somebody to ask, because we cannot know everything, but we can have people in our network who will know. And also plan very well, especially in the healthcare field, because of the regulatory landscape can be so difficult. And I've seen a lot of people making that mistake. Unfortunately, they think that sometimes the healthcare people, they think that, oh, I have to make my product super perfect. I have to make it perfect, and only then I will sell. And I've seen some super successful entrepreneurs who actually try to crack this vicious cycle. They're like, okay, we have a deck, we have a product, we started building something, let's hire an outsourced, sales team like yours, Dom, and test it out if people actually need that product, because maybe nobody will buy my product. Maybe let's book 10 demo calls to see if that product even makes sense to roll out. Maybe it just doesn't make sense. Maybe it seems like a good idea, but it's not. But usually what happens, you're trying to develop, not usually, but in many cases that I've seen that failed, people are trying to build the perfect product, and only then they're bringing it to the end user or user to see how the product is adopted. Then they hire super expensive salespeople in the US to penetrate the market, to do like SDRs, even SDRs in the US. How much? What have you ever checked? What is the difference in the payroll between Europe and, for example, US?
Yeah, it can be double, triple, yeah, the salary and bonus as well. So no, like good SDRs, they are checking out where to go, and they expect if they're going to perform to get really juicy bonuses. So you can pay I mean, more than $100,000 per year. I think
I would
that's
say even more.
totally
I'd say even
possible.
more. I'd say even more.
Yeah.
I'd say even more. And in
Yep.
Europe, you can save, as you said, 3-4 times of that. And, at the very, very beginning of your product, kind of our enrollment phases, you can just check if that even will have traction. And maybe you'll have to completely turn and change your product in one or another way. So I think that's why it's so important to have you dominant in network.
That's that's actually Europe's advantage, because when you think about that, the workforce is way cheaper than US, so you can move faster, cheaper, right? You don't need that much of the capital. On the other hand, you are in one of the best markets for healthcare because it's one of the fastest aging regions in the whole world. So meaning that at least in EU, right, the healthcare services will be always increasing in demand, and actually the trend is unstoppable, right? So I think it's a very good timing, let's say, to do something in this field. And obviously for like fundamental trends, it's growing for a reason, right? But I'm trying to be in a boots of like founder. Okay, I never studied anything related to the medicine. I know that it's a great field, but I never talked with, try to sell anything to the physician. I don't know how to hire these people, right? Do you think that that founder is like necessary or like almost mandatory to find a colleague, partner, co-founder who is like technical in that field, who can talk with the physicians, or like, like almost like screw it mentality, I will do on my own and try to like hit the doors with the head and all of that? Or what do you would say, like what would you would advise that founder who never like really touched that, but like wants to do something in that particular field?
Well, it all depends on how resilient you are and how much time in your life you have. You might spend, your entire life knocking your head and knocking on all of these doors that might open and might not. Maybe you'll be successful in like 6 years, but if you want to be successful in a short period of time, I firmly believe you have to have, and that's why it's important to have either mentor, partner, whatever, who will help you hack, not hack. Maybe hack is the wrong word. Not hack, but to actually understand the steps that has to be made. And maybe you and your partner who knows who to ask, who knows what to ask, um, is super important, because the time of figuring things out, it's time, it's money, and if you make a mistake, it can cost you really a lot of time and money and efforts, especially in the healthcare field. Regulatory, adoption, the way that what is the pathway of, if you think about it, maybe you think, oh, I'll create this amazing tool for physicians, but do you know that physicians actually don't even buy that tool? It's not the physician who makes the decision, it's the administration of a hospital that makes the final decision, or maybe will be adopted by not the physician but maybe a nurse, or nurse practitioner or a PA or whatever, and maybe it's not even the physician who you think in the conventional kind of day-to-day basis you'd think that this is the physician that actually makes that decision. So I firmly believe that you have to have someone who is an expert in the field to help you hack the time, save money, and efforts. And if I may share one of the good practices and give a shout out to the fund that I'm with, DigitalDx Venture. So what we have in the fund is we have experts, right? We have experts in different fields. We have maybe around 30 people who are so-called EIRs. When the company comes in, then when the startup comes in for the due diligence, one of the steps that the startup has to take is to be analyzed by the entrepreneurs and residents. And because you cannot know everything in healthcare, and in order to make the right investment decision, and if you have a portfolio company already that you've made that investment to, um, these are the key people who might come into your board in a startup and accelerate your growth with the know-how that they have, either if it's in regulatory, femtech, like you name it. These will be the people that will help you hack the algorithm on getting there and getting into the market. So, and I haven't seen too many venture capital funds, to be honest, to do that. And also, when you analyze or when you buy a product, you want to know that you're buying, especially something that is related to your health. If you're the end user, if you're a patient, having that trust that you're buying that product from someone who knows how to do things gives you so much more trust in the product, and I guess you'd stick to that product for a way longer time. But for that, you have to have either an advisory board, I'd say. You have to either have advisors in your startup or founders and C-level people who will actually who'd actually be experts.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you that it's necessarily for products that will be that you're going to be selling to doctors or clinics. But there's a good examples, and actually one of the examples we already told, Flow Health. Founders
Exactly.
are not doctors at all. They
No,
never worked. They've been doctors, or like they've been healthcare
no,
professionals before.
no. 100% no, but what they have an advisors and people in their team who guide
Exactly,
them. And exactly.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that advisor role actually can supplement you, but it's not very hard, like a hardcore regulated kind of product, right? It's like app for women's health. Another example can be Kilo Health, right? They might have advisors. I believe they have in-house like experts in the pharmacy, experts in different medical fields. But again, like founders, actually the people who started that business, they never been like healthcare experts or from academia or anything like that. So it's actually quite interesting that maybe the low-hanging fruit is more like a wellness type of like product that doesn't require a lot of regulation, and it's much easier like to enter the market probably and to go after the patient directly. Seems like that.
I 100% agree, and that's why when I was giving these examples on the buckets, right, of innovating in different fields, so you can, it depends on how you want to position your product, right, and what do you wanna do with your product? Is it focusing on, very strictly regulated healthcare facilities, physicians, you know, pharmacies, you name it? Or are you focusing more on, the end user, and you don't want to maybe necessarily treat the patient, but it's more of a wellness product, maybe, wellness products, something to optimize themselves, to track something. That's a completely different bucket of that. And but again, in order to understand things and know things and maybe sell things, then you have to have a little bit of knowledge on it. Otherwise, it can take you a bit longer. But it's as long as you have advisors, it's all manageable. And
So
people get
guys, dear listeners, yeah, the ones who are going to found medical startups, so contact Amit. She will examine you with the team of experts. So Amit, what is the best way to get in touch with you in any case?
My email, my LinkedIn, my phone number. Tommy can just share it.
Sure.
But I guess my email or my LinkedIn. Trying and doing my best. Actually, I recently added 15 minutes call with me because I get these LinkedIn messages and sometimes it's just too difficult to manage them all. I don't have an AI chatbot to respond to my messages yet, but yeah, just book 15 minutes with me on Calendly and we can have a chat. It's on my
Great.
LinkedIn.
So go on LinkedIn, book call with Amit if you're in healthcare. You'll find probably her email there as well. So thanks Amit for your time. Thanks for sharing your insights and have a good day off.
Thank you, Dom. It was a pleasure seeing you as always. And keep on helping startups to scale faster and better. And I hope more and more startups that are focusing on healthcare will use your services because they can save a lot of money on it.
Okay, thank you, Amit. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.